Welcome back to Light the Fuse. And Charles, we got a big ep today, but we're not going to go into that yet. We got to talk about some stuff beforehand, but this is a big one. This is one we've been waiting for a while.
Yeah, I never really knew if we were going to be able to. This is a big deal. It's the first time we've ever had anybody involved in the television show on our podcast. And to have that person be the one and only Barbara Bain is pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was really amazing. And I was very surprised she wanted to do the show, quite frankly. She clearly didn't do any research or look us up or anything beforehand. But she was an absolute delight. Yeah, for the best. She was a delight. And I can't wait for people to hear this interview. I thought she was really great.
Yeah. It was such an honor to talk to her. And, if you don't know, she won an Emmy for each of the 3 seasons she was on the original show. The original show was like an Emmy machine. It won all the big awards. But she was the only actor to win Emmys, and she won them every year for the first 3 seasons, which is really awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. But you said you wanted to talk about something at the top.
Yes, I did. Well, I just wanted to bring up, MI7 is shooting. They were shooting in Norway, and now they're shooting in Rome. There have been tabloid photos and stuff that they've been going through on social media, and, I think we've posted 1 or 2 things. We're trying to stay... We've gotten a couple people say, like, hey, could you not post too much spoiler stuff? So we're avoiding that on social media as much as we can, and whenever we do post something that has potentially something that's in the movie, then we'll put a spoiler warning. But if you really want to hear about what's going on in the shoot in both Norway and Rome, you should sign up for our Patreon, because we are diving in and trying to figure out what it is that they're doing. I mean, there's not really much to spoil. I understand there are people who want to go in completely blind and they don't even want to know what cars they're driving like that. Then I get it. But we've seen pictures of like what kind of cars they're driving and what the stunt was in Norway, which I think we've talked about a little bit on this main show, but they did an insane stunt that they shot in Norway. It's incredible. And we talk about it on the Patreon. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/lightthefuse. We've got bonus content there. Every week we do episodes, and so we are keeping up to date on that and when they are shooting things, and we do a lot of fun bonus episodes over there. That's all I really wanted to say, was just that we are aware of the shooting that's going on MI7, and we love that all of you are reaching out and sending us things, and when you find stuff, there are people from Norway who are sending us articles, like local articles and local videos, and that was cool. And now they're in Rome, and now we're getting, people from Rome sending us stuff. So it's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing those things with us. We love it. Keep doing it.
Yeah. And if you want the deep dive, definitely go to the Patreon, because anytime there's anything worth discussing, we will discuss it on the Patreon. So keep checking in. And we've got a bunch of great stuff there too. Commentaries and all a bunch of extra interviews and all a bunch of fun stuff. So definitely sign up for that.
Light the Fuse Plus.
Yeah, it's Light the Fuse Plus. Yes. That's our new name for it. Before we get into the Barbara Bain interview, I just had a couple of shout outs I got to give, Charles, which is that this episode is brought to you by Jeremy Dillon, and you should check out his podcast, My Favorite Album. And you and I are on this week's episode, Charles. What do you think about that?
It's pretty awesome. I'm really excited. I was just listening to a bit of it because Jeremy he puts more effort into his podcast. He puts little clips from the movies and clips of the score in the middle of the interview. It's really nice, really well done, and very happy to be a part of that episode.
Yeah, Jeremy is not as governed by fear as we are, so he just breaks copyright law. Maybe it's because he's in Australia and it's sort of like international waters.
It's the Wild West out there.
Yeah, just copyright laws do not apply in the outback.
But we're going to have that interview on our show too. Probably next month, I think.
Yeah. But you should just check out his podcast in general. He's got a bunch of great guests, and they talk about their favorite album. And Charles and myself, we talked about sort of Bond versus Mission Impossible, which is a topic that you guys always want to hear about. So you're going to get that episode on the main feed too. And I also wanted to let everybody know that this episode is brought to you by John B. And also Real Estate Interest LLC, commercial real estate advice for growing companies. And, if you are a company that is not even thinking about buying or selling, but you just want to consult with them, they can help you save and strategize. So go to them if you're thinking about commercial real estate. So I just want to thank all of our sponsors. And now we're about to get into Barbara Bain. Do you want to set this up anymore, Charles?
No, I just that it's awesome. Like, we still can't believe it happened, and she was so great, and can't wait for y'all to hear it.
Yep. And we'll be back after her interview with a very cool announcement. So you're going to want to come back after that. We're here, yes. Woo!
Okay.
Yes. Well, we're obsessed with the Mission Impossible franchise, obviously. And so, you're the first person from the original show that we've had on. So
Really?
yeah, we're very excited.
Well, there ain't a whole lot of us left, actually. Now that I think about it, are there?
I think we reached out to Peter Lupus and he never emailed us back. Yeah. He's a cutie.
We've got someone else from one of the later seasons lined up, but you're the original from the first 3 seasons of the show. So it's amazing to have you.
Thank you.
Well, what can you just talk about what it was? How was it just another audition? How did you get involved?
I don't know. A lot of people know this story. It came out of an acting class.
Right, and wasn't Jack Nicholson and Robert Towne in this class?
In it, Bobby Towne, Robert Towne, Martin Landau was teaching it. We had just come from New York with a Broadway play. We played 26 cities across this country. We were just married, so it was sort of our honeymoon. And we were ecstatic because we were 2 actors who had a salary at that point. We got here and a lot of things happened. We stayed here, first of all, because Martin started working. There were a lot of Westerns on at the time, and he could ride a horse, which was a big excitement. And he could, and television had just happened. The studios were panicked about television. And then they started making television themselves when they realized there was money there. And it got very fortunate for us. And we were both working so much that we didn't go back to New York as we expected we would have done. And then we needed a class. We're both members of the Actors Studio. At that time, there wasn't any studio out here. We needed a class where we could come once a week and try things. We were very brought up in that tradition at the Actors Studio in New York. And it was critical to us to have that. And a couple of us asked Martin to teach. He did. And he picked the class members. Jack being one of them. Bunch of wonderful, talented people, extraordinary. And Harry Dean was in that class. We only called
Harry Dean Stanton?
He hadn't put Dean. We called him Dean. Harry hadn't shown up yet. And he was always very funny. And Bruce Geller. Martin wanted writers in the class because he wanted them to see what the actor's process was. And in having them in the class, he also got them up on stage. And you never saw more terrified humans than writers trying to act, unless they'd had some acting experience. And Bruce was absorbing all this, and he wrote the pilot for Mission Impossible. He wrote the role for Martin, Man of 1,000 Faces, that actor person. And he told me later that unconsciously he had written me in. He didn't really realize it, it just had happened. He was trying to write a girl who was sexy but intelligent. And it wasn't a usual combination at the time here in this city called Hollywood. You were a dumb blonde or a housewife, generally speaking, on television. Yes, dear, no, dear, or a really dumb blonde. I played a lot of dumb blondes, by the way, which was kind of fascinating to me. So that's what he wanted, and he realized he had written me in. No, he didn't tell me that. So I had to go through the audition process. And all the other not so dumb blondes and me were up for this role. And he kept lobbying. They kept saying, who is she? She's unknown. We don't want her, But he did hold fast. He was a very interesting person, Bruce. And the last person, I think this is known as well, I had to see was Lucille Ball, because she owned the property.
Right.
I had to go into this little bungalow, which, by the way, now is a childcare bungalow on Paramount Lot. It was then Desi Lou. So I had to go in and see her. And I walked in, and I think I told this story. She looked me up and down, says, "Looks all right to me." It's 50 points. And that was it. Later, then, Bruce told me that he had unconsciously written me in, and he really wanted me. So he fought with me. And it was extraordinary. And because he knew me from classwork, he told the writers, which at the beginning was just him anyway, but then when he brought in writers, it was not easy to find writers to write it. He said they had to have a little larceny in their soul. And it was hard. The structure was different. The whole idea was different. There were many more cuts in that project than anything going on television at the moment. It was very unusual material. He told the writers, "Write it, she can do anything."
That's awesome.
What could be better for an actress? Here I had this running glam role, Cinnamon Carter, and every week I got to play another character. I mean, you couldn't sit home and just beg for that kind of role as an actress. And it happened to me very young and very gloriously. I couldn't have been happier at the time or in retrospect. And wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience all around.
So I want to, I gotta ask, because this is the mid '60s. This acting class was. I just want to know what it was like being in an acting class with Jack Nicholson. And, what was Jack Nicholson like then? I mean, what did you think of him? Was he just another actor?
Jack was always fantastically esoteric and unusual on the stage. He was Jack is one of the smartest people I know. He's very smart as well. And he always, whatever he did was off center. It never was straight on. And he looked like the boy next door at the time. He looked like a cute boy next door. Right. But he always had this eccentric, off-center quality, which was fascinating because it was unexpected in looking at him. In fact, we tried to get him onto Mission, but he looked like the boy next door, and he didn't seem like a threat to us. Well, because there were 5 of us coming down on this dictator or whatever he was. The person had to be a real physical and, not just physically, but a threat. And Jack, it looked like picking on a kid next door who played, kickball. He was very cute, but he was a boy. And we couldn't have 5 people coming after him effectively. So that didn't work. We couldn't get a job on Mission. What was the other question? What was it like? It was very, very exciting because everybody was very talented and very excited about, at the time, having someone like Martin, who was a brilliant teacher, there. And actors had the privilege, which they hadn't had, of getting up and trying stuff. And it was just very creative atmosphere all around. Everybody. It was just cooking all the time with excitement.
Right.
So Harry was always a little bit, gave him trouble. and he still got to get him to do what he wanted to. Why do I have to do that? He was kind of, but he was funny always. And sweet guy, lovely person actually. And it was quite something, actually.
That's it.
Young, there were a bunch of beautiful actors in that class.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable.
And Robert Towne would go on to write a couple of the movies too, which is so. No, he didn't write did he? No. Yes.
Yeah, Robert Towne.
Yeah,
wrote
1 and 2.
Robert Towne wrote
the movies.
Chinatown.
Yeah, but he wrote 2 of the Mission Impossible movies, which is kind of funny.
Oh, later, the actual movies.
Yeah, later.
I didn't keep track with those very much because they had nothing to do with the original show.
Right.
Okay. I mean, Paramount had a property and they wanted to do what they did, and they're still doing it. It had nothing. It was a one-man thing. It was all focused on the one character, and we were a team. It was just a totally different thing.
Yeah.
At that point. So I had to. That's what they want to do. That's fine. They set out to use it and make money. They did that. Can't quarrel with that. And as I say, it had nothing to do with what we did. The thing they did know smart enough to do was to keep Lalo Schifrin's music.
Yeah.
Right.
That was an enormous contribution. We walked to that music, even though we didn't hear it on the set. We had that music in us. We were very used to walking to Lalo. I saw Lalo recently at an event where they were honoring him, and it was nice to see him.
Yeah,
we'd love to have him. Show. Yeah.
He was very special.
Yeah, I actually, one of my questions I wanted to ask you was about the music, because at the time, reading about this, the TV shows at the time, music was meant to be kind of in the background, not get in the way. But with Mission Impossible, it was revolutionary at the time to be so front and center and to have a show that's so music driven. And I wanted to ask what it was like. Were you lamenting not having more lines of dialogue to speak, or did you enjoy having those?
No, we weren't. First of all, we were doing them back to back. 10, 12-hour days. No, we had enough lines to speak. Thank you very much. Because we would get the next episode on the set the day before we started it. So, and we were very excited, me in the makeup room. What is it? We'd be reading it. There was always an excitement about it. We were very up about doing this. We just all felt very, very proud of it, and the kind of meticulous care that Bruce gave to it, and the producer, Joe Gantman at the time. Every single detail was done, polished, tended to. We were in very good hands, let's put it that way. In fact, I think I mentioned the only time I ever had a question about one line in the script, I went to the writers, we call upstairs. We're in a sound stage. They had stairs. And I walked in. We were going to shoot it the next day. And they said, if you're asking about so-and-so on page 4, that's for an old script, so never mind. That's how ahead and clear they were about every script that came to us. One line. Yeah. And that was Bruce.
And what was, so Bruce was on the show for the run that you were there, and then he left? Is that right?
He left when he was let go, and we were all bounced at the same time.
I want to ask, so you brought up Lucille Ball. You auditioned for Lucille Ball. What was that moment like?
And we didn't read lines. She just looked at me up and down and said, looks okay to me. That was fun.
How nervous? Was it like, what was she to you at that point?
Of course I was nervous. Are you kidding? How could you not be? I was young, and, you wanted to get the job, and I didn't know that Bruce was so strongly behind me. Other people were up for it. And yes, of course, she was a legend. And I didn't know what she was going to ask me or say to me, or I don't know. Yes, you're nervous.
Yeah. And then you and Martin are on the show together for 3 years.
Yep.
And you were married at that time, right?
Yes.
And so what was that? How was that experience working
so
closely
we're very good
with your
Yeah, we were, found each other in the crucible of an acting class in New York. We were used to getting up on the stage. He was the smartest student in the class, and not the smartest, the best actor in the class. And he'd get up first, and I was a kind of new girl who couldn't even talk and walk at the same time. So we met in the work. And that's what we cared about, and it was easy for us. It was a very good combination. We didn't have any trouble with that at all. So that was lovely.
Yeah. And then so I guess talk a little more about leaving. So what was that? Bruce Geller left, like he was kicked off the show. Is that what happened, or
Yes. It's a complicated story. It was reported in the press in a way that wasn't true. And once it was so reported, there was no point in trying to tell the true story because nobody would listen. I had a legal battle with Paramount. By now, Paramount owned it. They bought Desilu. And Martin did not have a contract. He had a year-to-year deal because he didn't want to get tied into television. I had a contract. So there were differences, but we were treated the same because we were a married couple. So there was a misunderstanding. He said he wasn't coming back once Bruce wasn't going to be there on the basis of the quality of the show. That was his position, and they assumed that I had the same position. I did not. a lot of things happened. They're really hard to talk about because they're hard to understand. They're legal. It took a year to get settled. They wouldn't let me work for a year, so it was very painful.
Wow.
Yeah. And then finally, it didn't matter anymore to tell the real story because we were painted as people standing on a lot, holding guns and asking for more. It had never had a money conversation. It had nothing to do with money. But we were painted as two, hold up people with guns, holding them up for money. It was never about money. Anyway, it was about, basically, it was about the people who bought it. The show was expensive to make. They wanted to cut down expenses. They didn't care that we won all those Emmys and acknowledgement and were highly rated. They wanted to cut the budget. And in so doing, they had to fire Bruce because Bruce did it his way. We were always a day over. Every single shot was done the way he wanted it. And when Bruce is a very interesting guy because he was the most taciturn person in the universe, let alone in Hollywood. When he was really excited about something, he'd say, that was good. I don't think he knew a superlative, So you get very excited because he said that. And the same thing is how he handled their request to cut down on days. There were various strange requests made. They didn't want Greg Morris and I to stand next to each other, for instance.
Really?
Stop a minute and think about that.
Really?
Yes.
Because there was an implied relationship there that they thought was
they just hadn't had an image across America yet.
Wow.
No, it was a work relationship, but the proximity, they thought they'd lose all the southern stations. So they were worried.
Wow.
And then when we went on and nothing bad happened, they stopped worrying about it. But they tried very hard to, and Bruce would say, and then we'd stand next to each other if that's how we stayed. He just didn't listen. He did it his way. It was very strong and very quiet.
That's awesome.
Incredibly quiet. So there were those things that happened along the way that were different than what we were dealing with at the time. That was a pretty strong issue. The only show prior to that was I Spy, and they were lined up with, Kaz always had a girl of some kind of color, an Asian girl or something, a little bit not so
not white.
Right. And it was a comedy. So there were some differences that they were frightened of, just plain frightened. It was fear.
Right.
Nothing bad happened, so okay. So it was a very different time. Also my character, to have a woman, a girl, because I was still pretty, young. I still get letters. I got one the other day. It just makes me, I was so inspired by the fact that to try to do something with my life. A woman who just retired from NASA. Another woman who just did something because the lifespan has now happened,
Right,
so they say that at that time, they didn't see any strong women on television. And they write to me still to this day. And it's very, very, it's hard to explain how important that is. That somebody looked up and said, I think I could try something.
Well, would you have stayed on the show without Bruce?
Yes.
Yeah, you would have. Okay.
The answer was just plain yes. It was a whole other question you asked me about what, and I rambled on. So
No, I'm just curious because obviously if he was so involved in the show and obviously very inspiration to you and the character and all that.
I would have stayed, and I had a contract.
Right. So how many years early were you let out of your contract?
I think it was probably 7 years or 6, something like that at the time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was there 3, and that's 3 Emmys, not bad.
Yeah,
we
wanted to ask you about that. Were you?
That's good. I'll take it.
Yeah, were you surprised by that response at all? Because it was a very.
I was stunned. Stunned.
After the first year, you said, "No way, am I
was
gonna."
stunned every year. It was like,
Every year?
they said my name. What do I do? And the third year, that morning, they sued me of breach.
What?
That morning is when they sued me of breach.
Wow.
The third Emmy, and that's why I said the girl who used to be on Mission Impossible.
Oh, you said that in your acceptance speech?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Somebody called me from New York, said, "You quit on television? You quit?" I said, "No, I've been sued. I can't go there tomorrow." Anyway, it was very heightened. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
That day, yeah, is when I got sued.
Did you have any idea of like where your character was going to go if you had stayed on the show? No,
we never did.
Okay.
So it was so exciting. We never knew. I mean, I knew where Cinnamon was pretty much, but where who was going to show up next week and what prison camp or speaking some odd language or Eastern European, stuff. It was so exciting. It was very, very exciting project all around.
Well, and that's like something that I've read about too, but and you see it in the show, obviously, that Bruce Geller insisted on not much character and really no character development. He didn't want to go home with the characters. He just wanted to see them on their missions, and he had to fight to make sure that was true. What was that like for you to not? I mean, did you build out a backstory for Cinnamon that we never got to see, or was that maddening to you in some level, or did you like that?
Not in such a serious way. Cinnamon was not so far from me in many ways. I had modeled in New York. I was very strong. I've always been very strong-willed. I could carry my weight in most situations. I've always been, pardon the expression, an A+ student. She wasn't very far from me. The camaraderie amongst us, the respect amongst us, those were elements we understood. We understood very well, for instance, when getting that assignment. Nobody questioned anything. There were no question marks at the end of it. It was written with a question mark, but it was never spoken with a question mark. We didn't say, "You mean there's a 10 megaton bomb there? Question mark?" No, we made a statement. "You mean there's a 10 megaton bomb there?" Which means that's something I'm going to have to deal with, right? Which is different because when they started doing the show later, that particular element, which we all understood, wasn't. So they were asking questions, which kind of tore the fabric of that apartment scene, that first scene, a little bit apart, because if you're going to ask a question, you shouldn't be in the room. You're just going to say, okay, there are going to be 43 saber-toothed tigers in the room. I'll have to figure out how to deal with that, won't I?
Right.
It's addressed to the person, not to the person who gave you the assignment. So there were things like that changed without the understanding of Bruce and us all who understood that part of it. There were those little things. It was just great fun all around. I mean, I don't think back a lot. I'm always kind of part of the expression in the moment of what I'm doing. And I don't think back. But when I do get these letters, I feel so moved that some work I did a long time ago had resonance and still has resonance. And you still like the show. So how about that?
Yeah.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, we're still obsessed. But I mean, do you think this is the one thing that you've done that people reach out to you the most about? I mean, you've done a lot of stuff.
A lot of different things through the years. Certainly, it made me known on a large scale, which has to be, you can't do it otherwise. It's very hard to achieve that kind of response in people unless you're on television week in, week out, and it's a hit show. The Space Show did 183 countries, so I have an enormous following in that one, and a absolutely delightful bunch of fans, which I at first did not understand the whole idea of a fan club. Now they've been with me so long, and they've become what I found, which I'm very, again, moved by. There are countries all over the world, and they all know each other by now, and they all keep up with each other's families and their lives and what they've lost or what they've gained, what's happening. They really keep touch with each other in a deep way. Well, I didn't know that fan club, I call them kids, now they're kind of grown up.
We will fight the space fans, though. I think the Mission Impossible fans are here to stay. We're the cooler ones. I just want to put that out there.
I wouldn't want you to get into a fight.
Yeah, we'll take them on. Yeah.
You know, they're the ones who were the kids who were responsible who put a star on Hollywood Boulevard for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did it.
The Space 1999
fan club? Wow. Basically, the space kids. And they had, proposed that years ago, and I said, oh, no, don't do that. No, it's all right. Just, you have to raise money for that. And they raised the money, and I said, well, give it to Book Pals, that reading literacy thing that I started in Screen Actors Guild over almost 20 years ago now. And they did. And then they asked me again, fairly recently, about 5, and I thought, it just looked different at this point. I have a granddaughter. I thought of her. I thought, okay, let's do it. And they raised the money and they got it done.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Did you kind of guide, because Juliet obviously has been on a show that has a huge sort of fan following. Did you sort of advise her on how to interact with the fans and things like that?
No, she's seen what she's seen and learned what she's learned,
Right.
Grew up in it all. No, talk about the work, but not so much that. It was just a surprise to me. I was never a kid who ran around with a piece of paper and said, will you sign it? So I didn't know you did that. It didn't occur to me to do that. And I didn't understand it at first at all. And I did not know that they stayed together and cared about each other. That was just stunningly important. They had a big thing last year, I think, and they have every once in a while a big convention, the space people.
Right.
They came from Italy, everywhere in the world to say hello to me.
Wow.
How can I even tell you what that, it's beautiful.
And we're back. Barbara Bain, part 1, in the books. Wow. A legend, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was amazing to talk to her. And, the story about her Emmy speech when she won her 3rd Emmy and they were suing her that morning. We actually dug up the video of that and we'll post it. You can find it on the episode guide on our website, LightTheFusePodcast.com, and we'll post it on social media as well. It's pretty amazing. And we found her speech for the first Emmy she won as well, which is really great. So we'll share those things. You should definitely check them out. I also was surprised about, I did not realize that you mentioned in the interview is Juliet Landau is actually Martin Landau and Barbara Bain's daughter, Juliet. I did not realize that character in Ed Wood, she plays a part. She's the woman who is allergic to liquids, which is so funny in Ed Wood. So yeah, I thought that was news to me. I did not know that was their daughter. And so yeah, anyway, you should definitely check out Barbara Bain's new movie On the Rocks. We haven't seen it yet, but by the time this episode comes out, it will be on Apple TV Plus.
Yep.
It might still be in some theaters, and it's directed by Sofia Coppola, and it stars Bill Murray and Rashida. Is it Rashida Jones?
Yeah, Rashida Jones, and I think Marlon Wayans Jr. So yeah. Good cast, and Barbara Bain's in the mix, so, I mean, even more reason to go see it.
Yeah.
And, we have more from her next week, which is going to be great, and she tells some really inspiring stories about sort of what her shows have meant to people and how they've reached out to her, and it's pretty inspiring, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I'm just so I think we had talked about Barbara Bain like when we started doing interviews. We were like, oh, maybe we could get Barbara Bain. We're like, that'll never happen. But it was pretty surreal. And also want to tease that we do have another actor or actress who is coming onto the show later in the year, or maybe the beginning of next year. We've got so many interviews lined up. It's totally insane. So I can't even keep track of when things are releasing, but we have another person who was acting in the original Mission Impossible television series, and we have that person coming up soon. That was another thrilling conversation. So that's another tease, but that's not the big announcement.
No, go ahead, Charles.
The big announcement is 2 weeks from now. We've got a big two-parter of a big name that we've been talking about, and one of our most requested names that we've ever had.
Yeah, go ahead, Charles. You gonna just say it?
It's Michael Giacchino, the composer of Mission Impossible 3 and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. One of our most beloved composers of all time. We love this guy so much. We love so many of the scores he's done. Ratatouille, Up. He's done so much for JJ. He started on Lost and working for JJ, and has done almost all the Brad Bird movies. Yeah, it was unbelievable. We got Michael Giacchino, and he's got his first original album coming out, right?
Yeah, it's like his first non-soundtrack album, which is coming out on Halloween, and it is totally awesome. Charles and I got a chance to listen to it early, and it is called Travelogue Volume 1. It's kind of a concept album, sci-fi concept album, and it's just a lot of fun. We can't recommend it enough. It's coming out from our friends at Mondo, who we obviously love over there, and so we talked to him about the album, and we talked to him about his work on Mission Impossible, and yeah, we went into some surprising depth on Mission Impossible. For a guy that has like 1,000 soundtracks and scores that we love, he told some really, really great stories. And I think Charles and I were both super, super happy with the way the interview turned out.
Yeah.
And he was just a sweetheart and very generous with his time. So yeah, you're going to love it. I promise. It's so fun.
But first, we got part 2 of Barbara Bain next week.
Yes, which is just as great.
And then you'll get 2 weeks of Giacchino.
Yeah. We are spoiling the listeners, Charles. Do you know that?
Yeah. I think as soon as the Giacchino episode ended, I texted you and I was like, is there a Pulitzer Prize for podcasts? Because we should win it.
Yeah, real hard-hitting stuff with the Giacchino interview. How did you do Ratatouille so good? Yeah, we honestly have like back-to-back amazing episodes coming up. I'm really thrilled with everything. And then we're going to get into John Wick next year, it looks like. So you're going to have to sit on that for a little longer, but it's worth it. We've already done so many interviews for that too, Charles. We're on fire.
Light the Wick is going to blow your mind. We've got so many great people that you'll hear from. A couple of which were also involved with the Mission Impossible franchise. So you're going to get some Light the Fuse in the midst of the Light the Wick, which will be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I'm so thrilled. We've just stockpiled so many episodes. We're trying to get prepared because I've got my baby coming soon, and so we're trying to get me set up for paternity leave, but also set up so that you will still get your episodes every week. You can still get your fix.
And Charles, let me just tell you this: Charles does not want Carly to come in and sub for him. That is the last thing he wants. So we are gonna try to get him all out. So Carly, I know you're listening. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that Charles just cannot give up the throne, but
Carly Wiesel is trying to steal my spot.
Yeah, she's trying to steal it, Charles.
She's gunning for it, and I've got to do the work. I'm putting in the work to make this podcast every episode, every week. We're doing it.
I love it. Do we have any sponsors at this side on this side of the podcast?
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, we need to give a very special thank you to Robbie J. Martin. Could not do it without Robbie. Thank you so much. I also want to say thank you to our intern, Abby Smith, and this episode was mixed and edited by Luke Burson. So thank you to them so much. Couldn't do it without all of you as well. Sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/lightthefuse, and check out our TeePublic store, which is linked from our website, lightthefusepodcast.com, which also check out the episode guide on our website because we've got so many great show notes on there now for all the episodes. Still filling it out, but it's mostly done. And so you can check out, if you're listening to older episodes, check out all the show notes and see we got great links and photos and things on there that are aligned with each episode.
Great. And obviously, wherever you're listening to this, if you could like, subscribe, rate, and review, it would help us out. If you want to go to the Patreon, again, that would be a huge help. When we've got a lot of great stuff there. And also our TeePublic store, we've got some new designs up, and I'm trying to needle my wife into doing some new designs. She says, well, you want specific things. I said, go crazy. We just need new designs. So hopefully we'll get some new designs soon there. And yeah, and just, tell your friends about us. We will not be slowing down or stopping anytime soon, and we will just be running and gunning. We've got the new movie starting next November. And so we are in this for the long haul. So please keep coming back.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcasts@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.